Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video we have got the ASUSTOR DriveStor 2, or the AS1102T as it's otherwise known, the little NAS that can. Keep watching to find out more. Okay, so in today's video we've got the ASUSTOR. This is the DriveStor 2 AS1102T. The NAS that can. Now this at the moment is possibly one of the best priced dual bay NASs you can buy actually anywhere, with some fantastic software support. So for those of you that don't know, ASUSTOR, fantastic company. They do tons and tons of different NAS, from very basic models such as this one right up to huge servers and enterprise style stuff, that kind of thing. But for those of you that are watching this, you're probably looking at something a little bit cheaper and a little bit more cheerful. And this actually ticks the box absolutely brilliantly. Now, I will say straight off, this has been sent to me free of charge for review purposes from ASUSTOR themselves, and for me to check out. And I have actually used it a little bit, tried it out, seen what it's like. And I gotta say, this little thing is brilliant, and how they managed to do it for the money, I don't know. Whether or not everyone else is just charging way too much, or whether or not ASUSTOR have just got this at a price point where it just really makes sense for pretty much everybody at the moment. Anyway, whichever way they've gone with it, however they've managed to do it, they have done it. So let's take it out of the box, take a look at it, see what it's all about, and see if it's right for your home NAS, or for your office NAS for that matter. So first of all, let's take a look at the packaging, go through some of the specifications. We'll then go through, do a full unboxing, and then we'll go through, show you how to set up, first time setup, a very straightforward and simple process. We'll show you how to do that, and then we'll come back at the very end with my thoughts and my conclusions, and whether or not it's right for you. This will be broken down into various different categories and chapters in the video description below, so you can just click on there and find the one which is relevant to you. But I would strongly recommend watching the whole lot, because there's going to be a ton of information in here. So let's start off first of all with the packaging, as we tend to do on an unboxing channel. So looking at the specifications on the front, it's got obviously more than just storage, and that is what it is. This isn't just about storage, it isn't just about dumping all your files somewhere. This is a whole lot more. So this can be as complicated or as simplistic as you like. So whether you just want a simple device just to throw a couple of files on every now and then, whether or not you want to run a Plex server and stream all your movies and maybe stream music from your device as well. Maybe you want to do photo sharing with friends and family, and you want to try and get away from the Google ecosystem by getting away from Google Photos and Google Storage, or maybe OneDrive, all those kinds of cloud providers, which are going to be constantly charging you a monthly fee for the privilege of storing your stuff. Whereas you can, for a very inexpensive price, pick up one of these, chuck in some hard drives, and essentially you can start saving from day one. We should actually talk about price first of all. Now this at the moment in the UK is a crazy price as far as I'm concerned. So we're looking at £150. Yes, that's right, £150 for a 2-bay NAS is pretty insane for this kind of class of device. If you're in the United States, then you're looking around about $169, I believe, at the moment. Those prices obviously are subject to change. I will put some affiliated links for Amazon.co.uk, etc., so you can check out the current pricing in your local regions. But anyway, back to the unboxing. So specification wise, obviously, DriveStor 2, it's a 2-bay device. The 2 is kind of the giveaway in the title and also in the part number, so AS1102T. There will be an 1104T, and there are other models. So if maybe this spec doesn't quite tick all your boxes, then you can go up another level to a higher tier and you can get the similar sort of deal, but with better performance. Talking of performance, we have got a quad-core ARM CPU in here. This is the RTD 1296 1.4 gigahertz 64-bit processor. Now, you're probably thinking, well, what does it make a difference? Why do I need a processor in my NAS? Well, the NAS actually does a lot of things in the background which you don't normally expect. It does a lot of things like indexing your photos, it also acts as a firewall, and a host of other things. Again, transcoding video for Plex, that sort of thing, thumbnailing all your pictures in apps, that kind of stuff. There's a ton of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, and you do need a decent processor to do that, and having a quad-core processor certainly speeds things along. Now this can actually transcode 10-bit 4K H.265 film, so for streaming purposes this is great. And actually, talking about streaming purposes, they've actually put a specific mode in this for basically, they call it film mode or movie mode, so you can actually allocate a specific amount of system RAM in the box itself purely to streaming services, so you don't get those glitches and those kind of dropouts or frame rate stutters, that kind of stuff. This is ready for streaming. Anyway, back to the specs. So USB 3.2 Gen 1 port on the back and also on the front as well for doing backups or for transferring data. You can set up or configure various options for either backing up a USB stick. So if you've got a USB stick with stuff on, stick it in the front and it will automatically transfer it to a specific folder on the NAS. Or alternately, you can use the USB port on the back and maybe hook up a portable USB drive, so you can actually take a backup of your NAS and then keep that off site, which gives you a ton of security for your data. Also with this, which is actually very unusual for this kind of price point, which is why it's even more exciting how cheap this actually is, it comes as standard with 2.5 gigabit Ethernet. So even if you're just using gigabit at home and you're getting transfer rates of somewhere in the kind of region of about 100 megabytes per second, this will give you almost 2.5 times that. So potentially, depending on what you're doing, the read and write speeds are slightly different, but you could be looking at somewhere up to around about 250 megabytes per second. Again, depending on what you're writing, read, write, etc. We'll put some stats up on the screen now so you can see what actually ASUSTOR themselves quote in kind of laboratory conditions, but realistically for a home user, anywhere over 200 megabytes per second, and yeah, it is going to seem very, very quick. Also, they do make a big deal about toolless installation, which is great because currently we do not have any tools on the desk, no screwdrivers, so we are going to show you how to install drives in this, so you'll see how that goes without any tools. Also, we've got the Wacom WAN feature. So if you don't know what WAN is a wide area network. So you've got your LAN, which is your local area network. So if you've got a device on your local network and you need to access a file and this has gone into sleep mode, then your device will wake it up. If, on the other hand, you're actually off-site, maybe you've got a VPN set up, or perhaps you're using your mobile device, maybe your iPad, iPhone, Android device, etc. You can actually set it so that if you try to access maybe your photos online whilst you're out and about, showing your friends, neighbours, etc., it will actually wake up the NAS for you, and then you can still gain access to it remotely, which is absolutely brilliant. Also, it's ultra quiet, and actually, yeah, I can confirm that the actual unit itself is virtually silent. There's various fan speed settings you can change, so you can ramp it up, ramp it down. I left it to auto, and basically you don't even know it's on. The only noise you will get is obviously depending what hard drives you put in here. Some drives are inherently slightly noisier than others, but again, that is down to that. But the unit itself is essentially silent. Also, all of this is backed up with an awesome 3-year warranty, which is absolutely brilliant. And of course, there's a QR code on the front there, which we'll put on the screen now for you, so you can scan that and find out more. Sorry it's taken so long to get through this, but there's a lot of information on the side here. So we've got the ADM software. So this is using the latest ADM version 4. You can, of course, if you want to, you can use the older version, ADM 3.5. ADM 4 is inherently better. Now, actually, if you want to try out both of those simultaneously without spending an absolute fortune, you can actually access a live installation or distribution of this online. Again, I'll put links for this in the video description below. You can go in and the username is demo and the password is demo. Not very secure, but yeah, it's only for a one-time use, but you can certainly try out the two, see which one works for you. Generally, these are going to come out of the factory, I think, with ADM 3.5 on. I updated ours to 4.0 straight away, and there's actually an update for that as well. So yeah, regular updates are definitely a thing. It says there for enthusiasts, lifestyle applications and surveillance center. So you can actually use this if you've got the IP cameras around the home and you've got multiple cameras and you want all the information to go to one particular place, which you can then also access remotely on your mobile devices. Then you can set up this as a security center as well. So it doesn't just have to be about data. It can be about all sorts of things: pictures, movies, important documents, security footage. Essentially, the only thing which is limiting you is your imagination. And of course, the last thing, which is actually pretty important, is the kind of almost pretty much universal cross-platform support, and it's available on mobile apps, again, like we said. So you're looking at Android and iOS devices, no problems there at all. There's a whole bunch of apps available directly from both of those stores. Again, we'll try and get some stuff on the screen so you can see that, but there are so many applications for pretty much anything you can think of. Anything you want to do, there's a very strong chance that there's an app you can do it, or if not, someone's in the process of making it. So, glad you stayed with us this long. Let's take a look and see what we actually get inside the box. One thing I should start off with, actually, the moment you open the box is really handy. Straight away, it's got some QR codes there, so if you're on your mobile device, you can set it up with your mobile device, or if you're on a PC, you can just open up a web browser and go to start.asustor.com, and basically it gets you up and running. So you can go there, download the relevant software, which we'll show you a little bit later anyway, but it's just nice that things like that are just there ready and waiting. So inside the box, first of all, we get the NAS itself, this cute little thing, and also there is an accessories box. So let's take a look in the accessories box and see what we get in there. So in the accessories box, we are greeted with a mains power cable, and this particular one is the kind of kettle lead style that we get in the UK. Next to that is a 65 watt desk charger. Now actually, when it comes down to power usage, some of you are probably thinking in the back of your minds, is this going to be family friendly? Is it eco-friendly? That sort of thing. Now, because obviously using the ARM processors generally are very efficient anyway, this unit realistically is going to draw something like about 6 watts when it's in standby mode. When it's actually kind of just running, 12 watts. Now, depending on what you're transferring, if you've got both drives pounding away, then yeah, you may use a little bit more, but essentially you're looking probably about 12 watts active and 6 watts when it's in kind of standby, which essentially is almost like leaving a light bulb on, a very low powered light bulb at that. So if you're asking, is this going to cost me an absolute fortune to run? The simple answer is no, it doesn't. Next up, we've got some screws there for attaching the drives inside. There is a cable clip to hold the power cable in place. There is a Ethernet cable. And also there is a quick start guide. So here is the device itself, and you're probably going to see lots of flashy B-roll, which, yeah, I did the B-roll actually ages ago. I've been waiting to do this. This is something which has been on the to-do list for a long while, but it's only actually recently been released. So again, depending when you're watching this, I'm going to try and get this video released approximately on official release day, which we're still kind of unsure of at the moment. So yeah, hopefully the links in the video description will actually, we're going to be able to buy this when it actually comes to the time. But anyway, I'm digressing. So looking at the front of it, I love the design of this. You've got a really nice kind of crosshatch pattern on the front there, and you've got this really nice rose gold colored ASUSTOR logo, which is kind of, it doesn't need to be there. It could just be something cheap. It could just be a sticker, to be honest with you. But it's like all the things on ASUSTOR products, they do seem to kind of go that little bit extra. They don't need to, but they do. There's little things which you do notice and you think, yeah, that's a nice design or a nice touch, which I massively appreciate. So on the front, you've got, obviously, like I said, the crosshatch design logo on there. You've got 4 diagnostic LEDs on the front there, so one of which is a power LED, the next one down is the drive LED, then you've got your network activity LED, and again, there's another disk activity one. So yeah, pretty much everything's covered there. Again, those you can actually turn off if you want to. So if you've got this somewhere, maybe you've got it next to your TV in the media room and you don't want to have those lights looking at you, you can basically turn them off in the software. So all that is completely configurable, and you can dim them if you want to. So you can have them full brightness, dim, or turn them off. The choice is up to you. Also at the bottom here, we've got the USB 3.2 Gen 1 port, so USB Type A. So plug in a flash drive or maybe a USB backup. Maybe you've been out taking loads of pictures and you've got them on a USB drive. Stick it in there and it will automatically transfer to a section of your NAS. Obviously you do need to configure that and tell it where it needs to go, etc, etc, but yeah, it's a relatively straightforward task once it's set up. Moving on to the side, nothing particular on here. On the back we've got the 2 thumb screws, so that's to open it up. So you've got 2 thumb screws, you've got the fan on the rear, another of the USB 3.2 Gen 1 ports. There is a power button at the top here, so you press that to turn it on, and if you press and hold it, you can get it to turn off if for some reason you've lost connectivity and you can't access the user interface. Underneath that, there's a tiny little pinhole, and you can use that to reset to factory defaults, or if you're having network issues or you change router, etc, and you're struggling to get logged in again, you can use that to gain access to your device again. At the bottom here, this red colored port, that is our 2.5 gigabit Ethernet port. So again, 2.5 gigabit also supports gigabit and also 10100, but your file transfers will be considerably lower, but still usable if you want to. And underneath that is our power jack. There's also a Kensington lock slot as well, so if you want to secure this to a desk, maybe you're in an office environment or there's a lot of traffic or people going around, you don't want this thing getting nicked, because it is quite small. You could, well, you couldn't put it in a pocket, but it is pretty small. If you don't want to get it nicked, then yeah, put a Kensington lock on there and you can secure it to something. On the bottom, you've got some serial numbers, etc. You've got your ventilation at the bottom, and also 4 thick rubberized feet, which is actually very good because most of this enclosure is plastic. So inherently there's going to be some vibrations in there. Because you've got these really thick pads on there, when you actually got it onto a surface, most of it's taken up by the rubber. So even though this is a particularly lightweight device, the rubber actually helps, and again, it is essentially silent when it's in use. So that is pretty much it for the exterior, as lovely as it is. So let's take a look at the interior. Now, to gain access to the inside, very, very simple. No tools required, just some digits. So undo the thumb screws. And this is actually one of those things where I drop things on the floor. This is one of the things where I actually notice the attention to detail. So these thumb screws, you'd think it's just a regular thumb screw, but no, there's actually a captive washer on there. Because it's metal against plastic, they don't want you kind of deforming the plastic if you tighten up too much. So there's a nice little washer in there to make it easier to remove and tighten up. Nice little touch. Now, to take it apart, it's very, very simple. Again, it's a toolless experience. So you just push the cover back a little bit and it lifts off to the side. So then we've got the two components. We've got the main NAS section, as you can see here. Again, you probably see tons and tons of B-roll of this already. And then we've obviously got the plastic cover. So okay, it's very simple, very straightforward. And the fact that it's plastic, they've obviously realized that plastic does kind of warp a little bit. So they've actually put a metal bracket in there as well to strengthen it. So it just, yeah, attention to detail, fantastic. Actually, it surprises me how much attention to detail they do put into this. Anyway, let's take a look at the NAS itself. So again, we've got the fan on the back as we discussed earlier. So nice and easy to access that. So should you want to do any routine maintenance, you can get in there pretty easily. You could, in theory, if you wanted to. It does actually use a regular PWM style connection on there. So for the purists out there who want to replace the fan with maybe a noctua, then certainly you could do. There's only 4 screws to undo, and then you can remove that pretty easily. You've also got the actual drive bays themselves, as you can see there, and you can just about see there's the SATA backplanes. So literally the drives just slot in on the side there, all very easy to access. There is a BIOS battery, so if for some reason in the future the time starts going weird or whatever, then you can replace out the BIOS battery. There's a little heatsink actually on the quad-core processor down there. Essentially that is pretty much it. You can remove most of this paneling, the back paneling, and you can take the whole unit out, the backplane out. So if you want to get right in there and clean it, you can do, or examine additional chips. Although you don't really need to get in there. Essentially, once it's done and set up, there's no need to do anything else. So it is pretty much a one-time deal for setup. But for those of you out there that like tinkering, then you certainly can take it all apart, which is awesome. One thing you can't do with this, which I should highlight, is you cannot expand the RAM on this. You can add hard drives, you can do pretty much what you want there. It will support up to 36 terabytes of drives currently. So that's a combination of 2 18 terabyte drives in JBOD, or just a bunch of disks format, or just storage. If you then add a RAID level onto that, so RAID 0 or RAID 1, then RAID 0 is striping, RAID 1 is mirrored. So if you do that, basically you're going to get half of the size of your drive. So 2 18 terabyte drives won't be 36 gig, they'll be 18 terabytes, possibly a little bit less because of file system allocation, etc. But yeah, essentially that's how it works. You can put odd size drives in as well. I've actually tried that. I've done a 3 gig and a 2 gig. Works fine. Obviously you do lose the extra 1 gig because you can't mirror something which isn't there. But if you use it as just a bunch of disks, then you get the full 5 terabytes. So yeah, I said gigs just now, I meant terabytes. So yeah, 3 terabyte and a 2 terabyte drive. If you have them in a RAID, you get 2 terabytes. If you have them as just a bunch of disks, you get the full 5. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, there is a very easy to use RAID calculator. Again, I'll put links to that in the video description below. It's on ASUSTOR site. So there's basically a RAID configurator. You can see which drives will work, and it gives you the various different RAID types you can use. Although with this, you are limited to basically just a bunch of disks and RAID 0 and RAID 1. So that's enough for the interior. Let's stuff some drives in here and get it powered up. Okay, so let's start off with the drive installation. So we've got our thumb screws, which come handily packed, and there's 8 of those in there, so you can use 2 drives. So what I'm gonna do first of all, I've got a Seagate Barracuda, 3 gig drive, or 3 terabytes, sorry. And literally all you do is put the drive in the bottom and push it in, and it pushes into place. When you do that, on the side, you'll see there's screw holes that match up. So then all you do is with the little thumb screws, give them a little twist and get them into place. And that is essentially it. That is our first drive almost installed. If I can just get my fingers in there. Sorry, I'm doing this on a very awkward angle so you can see how it's done, which is probably not helping things. Again, these thumb screws have got those little washers on as well, which I talked about earlier. Just those really nice attention to detail. So again, can do exactly the same on the other side. And there we go. There is our first drive fully installed. So that is essentially it. We didn't need any tools, any screwdrivers or anything. And if you wanted to, you could just start off like this, just with a single drive. You can do that. Obviously, you're not going to get data redundancy on there. But if you just want to use this as somewhere to stream your media from for Plex, or maybe just somewhere to, I don't know, just leave files on for some other reason, maybe photos, bulk storage, backup for your business, you don't necessarily have to have more than one drive. Obviously, data redundancy, if you want to, then you are going to have to add another drive. So we're going to go ahead and add the next one. So again, just slot it on top. It lines up on the back on that SATA backplane. Once you've done that, then you can go ahead and do as we did just now. And that holds the drives in place. And that is essentially it. That is our installation. I keep on trying to go for the wrong hole. And let's put it on the side there so you can see the other ones. Okay, this is really simple, straightforward stuff. If you're into building PCs, then this is essentially no different. It's although modern PCs generally, I guess, wouldn't have mechanical drives these days, but you get the idea. Now, potentially, if you wanted to as well, you could configure this with SSDs. There's no reason why you couldn't do. You would need to work out some sort of mounting options to keep the drives in place, but potentially you could do. So once we're done with that, all we need to do is to put the top back on. So all we do is overlap slightly, and then you literally just push it forward, and that's it. It locks into place. Well, it doesn't lock into place, but it is in place. And then we can turn it around. Grab our thumb screws again. One, and there's two. So all we need to do now, we've got our drives installed, so now we need to go through the installation process. I'm actually going to fire up OBS and we'll do some recordings of this so you can see exactly how it all goes. But first thing I'm going to want to do is to use the power cord, plug in the power, so we'll get some mains power, then we're going to plug in this barrel connector into the power there, and then obviously we're going to plug in a Ethernet cable to connect to our network. Then when the power's on, we're just going to press the power button at the back there, and then we can go into the installation routine, which we'll show you next. Okay, so we've got our NAS turned on and we've waited for the telltale bleep. So we're going to open up Chrome, and what we want to do is to go to start.asustor.com and hit enter, and there we go. So it says how to set up your NAS. So you choose your product, and this is part of the A11 series, so you can check your compatibility for drives, etc. if you wanted to here, and the hardware installation, which we've already seen, so you don't have to worry about too much about that. Power and network, just make sure that everything's up and running, and ideally, if you look at the front of your NAS currently, in theory you should have 4 green LEDs on the front. Green is a good sign. We like green. So next is get started. So what you want to do is download the ASUSTOR Control Center, or alternatively you can do this on a mobile phone using AI Master by scanning those. If you've got Apple device, scan there. If you've got an Android, you can scan here. But we're going to do it on the PC because it's easier for us to record. So we're going to download the ASUSTOR Control Center. So we're going to download it for Windows, and we'll just save that to our desktop. Of course, when you've got your NAS set up, when it comes to downloads, you can actually download them to your NAS. You can actually have a piece of software as well to push all your downloads towards the NAS for safekeeping, which is pretty awesome. So that is downloaded. So now all we need to do is to go to the file on the desktop. We can do extract all, and then we can start the program. There will be user account control, but I've just flicked past that. So you choose your installation language. It says there, setup has detected that a version of ASUSTOR Control Center is currently installed. Do you want to remove the current installation and do basically that first? So we'll click OK. So it's going to get rid of the old version, and we'll go with the new one. Accept the agreement, find a location, create an icon, and click install, and then you get the option to launch the control center. Close this window down. So first thing it's going to do is going to search a network for any devices. So it's picked one up here, And you've got options here, so you can run Control Center, keep it on your desktop, or keep it running all the time down in the taskbar. You've got option to scan for NASes. You've got the option for opening the NAS, various connections, so network drives, map drives, etc., updates, service, and actions. So you can go into here and actually choose wake on land, sleep mode, turn off, etc., etc. So this is quite a handy piece of software to have on your desktop anyway. Don't necessarily have to, but you can do after. And as you can see there, we've got our status is currently uninitialized. So we'll click on that, and then it'll open up the web interface. And now we get the option for appearance. So you can choose either light mode or dark mode. So we'll go with dark mode. And you've got the option for a one-click setup or a custom setup. So if you know what you're doing, you know what you want, etc., then you can go with custom setup, or if not, if you go with one click, it's basically is one click. So it asks you your information, so your server name, so you can leave that as it is if you want to, an account name, so you have to create an account name. So ideally, don't call it admin, because if people want to try and hack your stuff, it's obviously easy to guess admin. So you can just set up a dummy account. So I'm going to just call it Mike, and then we're going to stick in a password. Now this is where we get to choose the capacities. So which best describes your data storage requirements? This is basically, do you want RAID or not? So currently, as you can see, maximum capacity, if we use the disks just as storage medium with no RAID, RAID 0, which is basically kind of striping, then we get 4.54 terabytes. If we choose for balanced, which is basically protection, so that's going to be RAID 1, so that's a mirror, and then that's going to give you a capacity of basically the largest of the smaller drives. So because we've got a 2 terabyte drive, after a little bit of file management, etc., it comes down to 1.82 terabytes, which is absolutely fine. Again, choose this wisely. You can change it if you want to after. So if you just put one drive in and start off with maximum capacity, let's give you your full size. Now when you put another drive in, you can migrate to RAID 1 after starting off with RAID 0 or just a bunch of disks. So yeah, there you go. So you can choose start installation, and there we go, because it actually erases the drive, so be careful. So now we've got it initializing, so it's setting up the hard drive partition, the system volume, data volume, admin password we've already done, languages, etc. So yeah, pretty much everything is done. So that is it. It was more than one click because we had to press enter a few times, but yeah, I get the general idea. Obviously, if you go through the other way, you can choose various individual parts, and if you want to, you can save your passwords, etc. So we'll let that carry on, and we'll come back when there's something a little bit more interesting. So the next part is register your NAS. Obviously, you can register later if you wish to, or you can register it. I've already got other ASUSTOR products, so I can just put in my ID. So we start off with the actual user interface, and there'll be some things to click through here, so about privacy, etc. So you get the welcome screen. You can choose to have this not come on ever again. So if you do that, say do not show this again. But this is quite handy. I quite like leaving it on just so you can see other things that are going on. So it tells you how to manage your space, etc., accounts, blah blah blah, services. Yeah, you get the idea. And protection of your assets, access your NAS anywhere. So this is the main screen. So this is your your main user interface. You've got access control. So this is for setting up accounts. Activity monitor shows you system activity, processor usage, etc. App Central is your app store. Online help, this is invaluable. This is all the knowledge base articles on how to set it up, and it's actually very, very good, very easy to search. Backup and restore, so that is to configure your backups and then to restore from backups, either externally or internally. Then you've got external devices, so you can set up your external USBs, Wi-Fi, UPS, Bluetooth, etc., and optical drive should you need to. On this side, you've got File Explorer, so if we go into there, essentially, if you've seen File Explorers before, then this is pretty straightforward stuff. So you've got your home drive, which is your own home page, or kind of like in Windows, My Documents. You've got your public folder, so that's for sharing, and also you've got web, so you can create your own web pages and host them from your own NAS. Recycle bins as well, and you've got Easy Sync to synchronize to external sources. Services is going where you can configure individual services, so if we take a quick look in there, so you've got things like SMB for sharing under Windows workgroups, etc. All that kind of stuff, and all your individual services there. You can configure those. Settings is kind of like your control panel. So you've got the general Media mode, you can turn it on or off. It's on as default. Your sign-in page style, you can choose obviously how we changed earlier. You can actually change the background, so if you want you can choose a different background. Yeah, you get the general idea. Show time, you can choose month, date, so we'll change the month and dates because I like it to be set out like the English way. And 12 hour or 24, and the date and time settings you can synchronize, etc. All the kind of usual stuff. Now, one thing I will say is when you first set up your NAS for the very first time, it will be slow because there's so much stuff still going on in the background. Even though we've got the interface up and everything's up and running, it's still setting up the RAID and the drives, etc. Anyway, moving on. So hardware wise, you've got energy control, hibernation, etc. for your disks, power management, EUP mode. I would advise not using that unless you absolutely have to, because it does actually hamper the performance, etc. Fan control, you've got auto, low, medium or high speed, but again we can't hear it anyway. So LED brightness, you can turn them on or off and make them super bright or super dim. So let's turn them on to full brightness now, and yeah, they're a little bit brighter. They're not that bright anyway. Notifications, so you can add email addresses and SMS information, so you can get information from there. ADM Defender, which is your networking firewall, so you can choose firewall settings, etc. ADM updates, so you can check for updates. We are using the latest versions, that's fine. You've got a network recycling bin, scheduling, so you can set it so that it does automatic things in the background in off-peak hours, such as creating thumbnails and resizing images and all that kind of stuff. Easy Connect is the one is really cool, so you can go in there and hopefully it's not going to show too much more information. Yeah, so essentially this is Easy Connect, so you can go in there and set up your Easy Connect service. You've got manual connections options as well, and a reset to factory defaults and registration, etc. all in your settings. So yeah, quite a lot going on there. Go into system information, it tells you about your IP addresses and locations, all that kind of stuff, online users. So currently it's just me, and yeah, you get the general idea. This is basically a portal, so nothing particularly outrageous in there. Easy thing to do, access control. So if you want to set up a new user, again, I would say first thing you want to do, if you haven't already, disable your admin and guest accounts and just have your own personal accounts and set those up. You can add an account very easily, so add a user or add multiple users, or you can import from another NAS. You can set up quotas for drive allocations, etc. Local groups, local exchanges, all that kind of stuff. So that's access control. I thought it'd be actually a good idea if I go in and show you actually the storage manager as well. So if we look at storage manager, so it's showing both our drives there. So currently that's volume 1, RAID level 1's driving 1 and 2, and it's healthy. You look at the volume itself, so as you can see at the moment, because it's a new drive, it's synchronizing. This takes absolutely ages, kind of like hours. So first time, just let it do its thing. I wouldn't start transferring data and doing all kinds of crazy stuff straight away. Just let it finish synchronizing. Once you're done, then you can go ahead and do all your configurations. So you're not going to do too much now. And you've got your drive information, disk doctor, etc. While it's doing things in the background, it will be potentially quite slow. So just let it get on and do its thing. But anyway, so that is the interface there. Of course, if you go into App Central, this is where things get a little bit more interesting. So for those of you that actually do like to have a little bit of a tinker and a play and you want to try out all these new things, then there is loads and loads of apps and things you can choose. So you can just do a default setup. So it would say, right, are you a home professional application? Yep. You can select apps, business applications you can do, or professional design, or you can just skip that and just choose your own. I like to keep my NAS installs pretty minimalistic, so I don't really install a great deal, but ones I would suggest doing. So you've got the top apps, which are kind of like highly rated apps. You've then got the latest apps, so these are ones which have been updated or are new on the scene. You've also got ASUSTOR's own apps, so these are kind of in-house apps which have been built and designed for ASUSTOR devices specifically. You've got things like Apache, Cloud Backup, Data Center, Docker, so you can install Dockers. Download Center. Download Center is actually pretty decent one if you do a lot of downloading. You can just use that and download larger files to your NAS rather than having to do it to your PC. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, there's tons and tons of things in here. You can go through and find lots and lots of things which you might find useful. You can set up your own mail server, media casting options, Photo Gallery 3 is actually one that I really want to try out, trying to get away from Google Photos. So let's install that now. Very easy to do. Tells you it needs the home folders and installation of FFmpeg as well. So yeah, we'll go ahead and install that. And you can carry on doing stuff while it's installing. You can just keep on scrolling through, look for other things. The other ones which are quite useful, Sounds Good. So if you want a kind of media player for your network, Sounds Good is really good for that. Obviously, Surveillance Center. So if you've got those IP cameras we talked about earlier, then those are really cool. But, yep, so that's the ASUSTOR ones. You can just look at all apps. So security stuff. Some of these will be, well, in fact, the majority of them are free. There will be a few paid for ones, which are third-party apps. Again, depending on what you want, you may not need to. So yeah, Good Sync is good for backing up and syncing. Home Assistant for home automation. Quite a few of you have probably seen that, so you can run that from the NAS rather than having that on local devices or PCs, etc. IronWolf Health Management, always worth getting if you've got Seagate drives, so you can install that and it'll give you more information about your drives. But yeah, generally I think you get the idea. So it's actually very, very nice and easy to use. I just really like it. It's a really cool user interface. It's very simple, straightforward. There's nothing particularly overwhelming by it all. At the top here, you've got your notifications, so system announcements if there's anything. You've also got your tools there, so you can add in things like your storage manager, activity monitor, and online users, and logs, so you can have all your log stuff. I actually quite like that, having that there. You can just click on there and then they'll all pop out so you can see what's going on. And also when you click on those, it actually goes into them in more depth as well. So that's that one there. Yeah, my mistake, I was going from the old version. So yeah, it tells you what's going on. So you've got your overview, you've got your CPU usage. At the moment you see it's not really doing a great deal. Memory usage, using about half of our provided space at the moment. Network wise, transfer speed, we're not really transferring anything, but yeah. It's all very interesting stuff. If you're into that sort of thing, you can find out all the information anyway. Next one up is the searchlight. So that is basically your search option. If you've used a Mac, you know what that's all about. And then you've got your preferences as well. So you can go in a whole new level of things. So you've got all the stuff that we talked about on the desktop, plus extra bits and pieces, shared folder. So let's quickly create a shared folder. So we'll call this downloads. And downloads, and we can choose to have it invisible in My Network Places. It's entirely up to you, and you can have it encrypted, etc. And you can have it so it's only accessible by administrator group users. I think we will say that for now. So next, and I'm just going to have it for read and write only for admins and read only for all users. Next, and finish. And that's it. We've created a shared folder. So now if we wanted to, we could actually map that downloads to our Windows installation. So if we go back to our ASUSTOR software here, and we'll scan again. That's picked up our drive. So what we can do now is we can map a network drive and put in your username and your password. And then you go the map local network drive wizard. So you can choose which drive. So let's choose downloads, and what letter should we call it? Let's call it drive letter Z. And so you can open the drive on finishing, reconnect it, log on automatically, and let's choose remember my credentials because it's a pain in the backside sometimes. So click on finish, and there we go. There's our downloads folder on the network, added to our list of network things. So if you want to, you can then just download things straight to this folder, and it's not on your PC, it's actually on the NAS. And again, obviously, because it's a shared folder, other people on your local network, or if you give people options to share externally, then they can gain access to it. So yeah, it's very straightforward. It is exceptionally simple. So let's say I've got, actually there's a Typhoon there, so let's cut that, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to stick that in our downloads folder just in case we need it at a later date, and we'll paste it in there. Now obviously this is a bad idea because currently we are actually still setting up our RAID, so the drives are still syncing, but still it just snaps over very quickly. again, you've probably seen the performance results. We can get up to 2.5 gigabit transfers on here. Yeah, this is very simple. And you say things you don't necessarily want on your PC, you can just store somewhere else and you just drag and drop it across. It's all very slick, very smooth. And of course you can access it from web interfaces, etc, etc. Just basically it's a very easy and functional piece of software. I really like it. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. Okay, so there you go. You've had a brief introduction there of ADM 4.0. Again, if you do want to play around with it a little bit more and see what other features are available, then you can go to the link in the video description, go to the live installation, so you can just have a play, have a fiddle and see what works for you, see if it makes sense to you, that kind of thing. But overall, I've got to be honest with you, for £150 here in the UK, this gives you a heck of a lot for your money. Now, I do apologise if you can hear the hard drives thrashing around in there a little bit, but it's actually not too loud. I'm right next to it, the fan is there. It's pretty quiet. Now, the only reason I haven't got it on the desk is because it resonates on these IKEA desks because they're hollow, so it sounds awful. But it is a very small device, as you can see. There is, it's basically tiny. You could fit this pretty much anywhere. It isn't much bigger than basically some cable boxes that I've seen, or like internet routers, that sort of stuff. It isn't a great deal bigger. It's a little bit wider possibly. But yeah, a very compact piece, and actually not much bigger than one of those Western Digital MyBook drives, which have got virtually no features to them at all apart from a USB cable, whereas this is a potential whole world of fun. So for your downloads, for your photos, sharing files, for backing up important information, for streaming your Plex movies, for streaming audio across your home network. Again, essentially it's going to be down to your own imagination and what you can get it to do. Now, for us personally, we can do things like backups for our main PCs, very easy to do with the software. You can install it and it will synchronize across. You can, of course, use it just for photos. There are so many options, it is insane. But I think the real takeaway of this is the price of it. So if we look at the UK at the moment, if you just want a simple setup, say for instance at the moment you're a typical home user and you've got, say, a Microsoft 365 account, for instance. So with that, you're getting, what, 1 terabyte of free storage. You're paying for it, but you're kind of getting it. So even if you're using that terabyte and you're not even using all of that, you're still paying your Office 365 Premium. Yes, you get Office with it, but you could always move away from it. There are free distributions, etc. If you're using your 365 account more for storage than you are actually for the software, then looking at something like this, like Microsoft 365, what does that cost you? Maybe getting on for nearly £100 a year for a family, whereas this is £150, and once you've got some drives in there, it's going to last you, well, it's guaranteed to last you 3 years at least. So yeah, there is that to it. Drive-wise, you can pick up 2 terabyte drives, I think I've seen recently, for somewhere like £30. So £60 plus the purchase price £150, so just a shade over £200 to give you some excellent reliable storage. And also security matters. Obviously you're now going to be keeping your information, your photos, your documents backed up to your own local cloud, and then it's down to you to how open you actually make it. You can restrict it so there's only one user and that's an admin account and no one else knows the password. Locks it right down. Alternatively, you can be free as a bird, give everyone a username, give everybody an account, set up some guest accounts and let everyone stream movies from your NAS. It depends what you want to do and how you want to do it. So anyway, I've waffled on for way too long. Hopefully I've answered most, if not all, of your questions. If I haven't, please feel free to reach out to us in the comments section below, or alternatively, if you've got something a little bit more complex, maybe reach out to us on our Discord chat server, or alternately, use ASUSTOR's own community. They've got a great community. There's loads of helpful people on there who will be able to answer your technical questions if they're not actually already covered in their knowledge bases, which are extremely wide and various. So yeah, they've certainly helped me out on numerous occasions. So anyway, that has been the ASUSTOR DriveStor 2, the AS1102T, the little NAS that can, and it definitely can. I've been Mike, this is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.